For 6 weeks, the story has been frozen in time. It starts at 1:47 a.m. A camera goes dead, a shadow on the porch. 41 minutes of silence inside. Blood discovered on the steps. A pacemaker signal vanishes at 2:28. A car departs at 2:36. This is the official timeline everyone's dissecting. It's the story you've heard, and it has led absolutely nowhere. We are not starting there. We're going back 4 hours, to 9:50 p.m. on January 31st, as a garage door slid shut in the Catalina foothills. And the only person who can account for what happened behind it is a man the FBI has since questioned more than 5 times. His name is Tomaso Chioni. He claims he drove Nancy home from a dinner party at his place. He states he saw her enter through the garage. He alleges the door closed behind her. He insists she was home safe. That is his version. But the only physical proof Nancy ever got home is a garage door closing at 9:50 p.m. No camera filmed her walking inside. No neighbor witnessed the drop-off. Everything rests on the testimony of the last person to see her alive. And then there's the medication, a critical evening dose. Vital heart medicine she was scheduled to take around 10 p.m. Her arrival was between 9:45 and 9:50. She had a 5 to 15 minute window. The next morning, it was found on the kitchen counter, completely untouched. An 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker, who the sheriff stated could not survive 24 hours without her pills, had just gotten home, walked right by the medicine that kept her alive, and failed to take it. Either she simply forgot possible, but odd for a woman the sheriff called exceptionally sharp, or she went directly to sleep, which is also plausible. But this would mean she abandoned her own vital routine on the one night it mattered most, or something intervened before she could. Or perhaps she never even made it to the counter. Her hearing aids were already out, leaving her totally deaf. Her phone sat on the nightstand. Her wallet was in the house. Her car was parked in the garage. All of Nancy's belongings were exactly where they were supposed to be. All of them, except for Nancy. For 6 weeks, the internet has fixated on the identity of the man on the porch. I have been pursuing a different lead. What occurred between 9:50 p.m. and 1:47 a.m. Because those 4 hours are a void, a period that has seen no public scrutiny. And when you analyze what was reportedly discovered in Tomaso Chioni's car after it sat for 40 days in a desert impound lot outside Tucson, size 12 women's pants and a dark jacket. When you follow the connections from Tommaso's social circle to the person who sent a ransom text directly to his phone, not the family, not law enforcement, but Tommaso, those 4 hours stop looking like a gap in the story and start looking like the entire story. This is the deep dive that goes where no one else has. We're not looking at the porch, the strange walking gait, or the sheriff's contradictions. We're looking at the 4 hours before any of that even happened. And by the end, your entire understanding of this case will be turned upside down. Every single night, Nancy Guthrie removed her powerful hearing aids. Without them, she was in a world of total silence. She was 84 years old. She relied on a pacemaker that wirelessly synced her heart data while she slept. Twice a day, she took essential medication for a serious heart ailment. She weighed 150 pounds. And every night, once the sound was gone, she slept completely alone in her remote Arizona desert home. She raised 3 children by herself after her husband Charles was killed on a mining trip to Mexico in 1988. At 46, she became both parents. Former FBI agent Maureen O'Connell, who lost her own father at the same age as Nancy's daughter, describes women like Nancy as fiercely self-reliant, the kind of person who would never consider assisted living. The kind who is determined to stay in their own home, no matter what. That was Nancy. She refused to drive after dark, not due to inability, but because she hated the feeling of arriving at a dark, empty house alone. During the day, she was independent, but at night she relied on family or an Uber. Each ride was with a stranger who then knew her address, knew her age, and knew she was arriving alone after dark to a home with a security camera that wasn't recording. Her daughter Savannah is a media personality in New York, earning $8 million a year. Her son Cameron is a retired Air Force colonel who piloted F-16s. Her daughter Annie lives 4 miles down the road with her husband Tommaso. Nancy was not isolated. She was surrounded by support, but had no in-home caretaker, no medical alert necklace, no panic button. and a Nest doorbell with no active cloud subscription, a camera that could detect movement but saved no video. For all intents and purposes, it was a bluff, and anyone who spent time in that house knew it. On the night of January 31st, Nancy hailed an Uber to Annie and Tommaso's house. The Pima County Sheriff's timeline places her arrival at 5:32 p.m. There was dinner, games, and a margarita. A drink her daughter Savannah once publicly joked she shouldn't finish. It was a Friday night. At 9:48 p.m., Tommaso began the 10-minute drive to her house. Her garage door shut at 9:50 p.m. Tommaso claims he saw her safely inside before he left, just 4 miles away. Yet for 14 hours, Nancy's world went silent. No calls, no texts. No one checked on the 84-year-old, deaf, without her hearing aids, in a home with a dead security camera. Her absence wasn't reported out of concern for her safety. It was because she missed a church live stream at a friend's house the following day. Around 11 a.m., family arrived. They swept the house and the grounds. Nothing. They called 911 at noon. By then, it had been over for at least 9 hours. Now, forget the official story. This is what the evidence reveals about what happened in that house. Not the sound bites replayed on the news for the last 6 weeks. This is the raw evidence. At 1:47 a.m., an intruder physically disabled the doorbell camera. Someone touched it. The FBI, with Google's help, recovered ghost footage from the device. This video was never meant to be seen. The camera wasn't recording to the cloud. The footage shows a figure moving with the familiarity of a resident, not an intruder. He wasn't searching, just walking straight to the camera with practiced, automatic movement. Experts call it ownership behavior. He tapped the lens twice, then killed the feed. As casually as flipping a light switch, he wore black nitrile gloves and a ski mask. Facial hair showed beneath it, with a 25-liter Ozark Trail backpack on his shoulders. He had a belly band holster, a gun worn incorrectly, and a strange shape in his pocket. The FBI estimates his height between 5'9" and 5'10", with a medium build. A former profiler noted a possible tattoo on his right wrist, seen as his glove slipped. The next 41 minutes are a black hole. The camera was dead. Only the aftermath speaks. Blood stained the porch and driveway. The drops were perfectly round, undisturbed. An ex-FBI agent said, "This pattern means the blood fell straight down, as if from someone being carried." There were no footprints disrupting the blood patterns. No smears, no signs of a struggle, no drag marks. His conclusion: Nancy, who weighed 150 pounds, was wrapped and carried out to a vehicle. One person could do it, but not quickly or easily. Her medications were left on the counter. Both doses, untouched. Her phone and wallet were there. Nothing was taken from the house. Nothing, except Nancy herself. At 2:28 a.m., her pacemaker disconnected from her phone. It was her last digital signal on Earth. 41 minutes, from camera to disconnect. 41 minutes for someone who wasn't rushing, who showed no sign of panic. Someone who moved through that house like it was his own, knowing every creak in the floor. But this didn't start on February 1st. The real beginning was January 23rd. 9 days earlier, a strange video surfaced 6.5 miles away. A man walking backward up a driveway. He wasn't drunk or clumsy. His steps were precise, his back to the camera. Most home security systems have a delay. They use heat and motion sensors, which aren't instant. It takes 1 to 2 seconds for the system to wake up, focus, and start recording. Walk forward. Your face is caught in that delay. Walk backward and it only sees your back. By the time the camera is fully active, your face is hidden from view. He was beating the technology with his own body. That wasn't luck, it was research. His practice location was in the same area. Isolated homes, long driveways, minimal light, deep shadows, 6.5 miles from the target's door. Far enough away to deny any link, but close enough to be a perfect copy of the target environment. He was running a dry run. A dog barks. He runs but backward, fighting the instinct to turn. He would rather stumble blind than allow a single camera frame to see his face. That isn't a reflex. That's rehearsal. He has played this moment in his mind until the plan overwrote his fear. The backpack he's carrying, an Ozark Trail 25-liter model with its distinctive safety strips, is identical to one seen at NY's home 9 days later. Same bag, different house. But watch the behavior. On January 23rd, the man is coiled with terror, hunched and paranoid. By February 1st, he walks with confidence onto NY's porch and coolly taps the camera twice. He no longer fears the technology, because for 9 days, no one came for him. He discovered he was a ghost. This wasn't a test anymore. This was an execution. The sheriff flagged January 11th as a key date, 21 days before the abduction, requesting all footage from 9 p.m. to midnight. He never said why. 3 dates, 3 weeks, January 11th, January 23rd, February 1st, surveillance, rehearsal, attack. 4 of the country's biggest news outlets, ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN, all used separate law enforcement sources to confirm the suspect stalked NY's home repeatedly before she was taken. An FBI image shows the suspect with no bag. In the video, he has one. Same clothes, different gear. 2 different visits. The Pima County Sheriff's Department called those bombshell reports purely speculative. 4 networks, 4 sources, with the sheriff as the lone voice of denial. Now, consider the neighbor's cameras, where the planning becomes undeniable. On March 6th, FBI agents canvassed the street, asking about internet problems on the night of February 1st. Multiple residents said they'd had them. One neighbor, whose yard offers a direct line of sight to NY's house, found his ring history for that night was missing, but only from the cameras aimed at her property. The cameras on the other side of his home, on the same power and Wi-Fi, recorded without a glitch. That wasn't a simple outage. It was a targeted electronic assault, aimed at specific devices in a specific direction. A Wi-Fi jammer is a blunt instrument that kills all signals. But NY's own camera captured footage before it went down. Her pacemaker kept transmitting until 2:28. A brute force jammer would have silenced both instantly, a fact confirmed by retired FBI agent Jennifer Kafender. So, whatever hit the network wasn't a full jammer. There's a third option, a deauthentication tool. It sends commands through the Wi-Fi protocol itself, tricking specific devices into logging off the network. It's surgical, directional. It can blind cameras on one side of a building while leaving the others untouched. It costs less than $30, fits in your pocket, and explains the neighbor's story perfectly. That same neighbor says his dog woke him in the middle of the night, something it never did. The dog went into the yard and just stood there, ears up, staring toward NY's house. Pima County veteran Eric Maldonado, with 29 years on the job, notes dogs hear what we can't. The animal heard something real as the cameras went blind. Behind NY's home lies a wide stretch of open desert, shared by the neighbor. If someone approached from the rear, avoiding the street where a car would be noticed, they would pass just feet from those cameras close enough for a pocket device to sever their connection. Later, drone footage from Fox News would reveal shattered floodlights at the back of NY's property. Front camera neutralized by hand, rear lights smashed. 2 points of entry had been prepared. One man could do it all, but 2 men, hitting both points simultaneously? That, for retired Vegas Lieutenant Randy Sutton, signals multiple attackers. 8 minutes after that pacemaker signal died, a camera 2.5 miles away on Camino Real recorded a vehicle at 2:36 a.m. NBC's Liz Kreutz drove the route herself. 6 minutes. The pacemaker went dark at 2:28. The car appears at 2:36. That's a 2-minute discrepancy. The kind of pause you take at the end of the block, checking your mirrors before you flee. The sheriff's department conceded the timeline works. That camera belonged to a couple living outside the search area. The police never asked for their video. They found it and turned it in themselves. That is the anatomy of the crime. Now, let me show you the web it sits in, because this case is not an island. It exists within a network of people and relationships, all connected by documented ties leading back to one man. Tomaso Chioni has been a fixture in Tucson's music scene for almost 2 decades. His band Early Black plays local venues. In 2007, he answered a classified ad from a drummer, Dominic Evans. They'd been a band ever since. Their first album's title, Life, Love, Love, Murder. They played gigs all over Tucson, even the Flycatcher, a raw bar in the city's underground scene. Then, in February 2026, police arrested a man named Derek Kalla. His offense, a text to Tommaso and Annie's phone. Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on RN. He also placed a quick call. Officials dismissed it as a sick prank, unrelated to the abduction. Kala was charged with fraud. But he didn't just find Tommaso's number by chance. Kala, known as Secret Mutilator, was in Tommaso's own Tucson music scene. He had known links to others in their shared circle of venues and friends. In a town as small as Tucson, with an alt music scene of maybe 300, the circles are small. The sender wasn't a distant stranger. He was an insider, someone with access to Tommaso's personal number. This doesn't mean Derek Kalo was the abductor. Police called it a hoax, but one question lingered. Who in Tommaso's world knew about Nancy? Her home? Her habits? Her weakness? Her well-known daughter? In a small scene where secrets are shared on and off stage, details spread without being asked. You overhear things. You learn about people around you. And if someone is the son-in-law of an 84-year-old woman living alone with a broken camera and a faulty gate, that knowledge is currency for the wrong person. Then there's the car. This is where evidence intersects with the timeline. Their blue Honda CRV was taken early on. By March 11th, 40 days later, it was still gone. It's being reassembled at a garage after what reporter Dave Mack called a deep search. The Pima County Sheriff's Office told Parade its return was pending, with no firm date. 40 days. A car owned by cleared individuals, still held as evidence, still being processed. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer explained why the car is so critical. Was Nancy tracked from their house on January 31st? Was a GPS device planted on it? Did anyone touch the vehicle, leaving behind prints or DNA? That car was the final contained space Nancy was in before reaching her house. Any biological traces left inside hair, cells, fibers are being matched to evidence from her home. A stranger's DNA in that car would forge a direct link to Nancy's last ride. Coffindaffer also noted a legal point that has two interpretations. She noted their property was searched by consent, not with probable cause warrants. She claims this shows a lack of evidence. But consent also means they allowed their vehicle to be dismantled. It means they permitted repeated searches of their house. They let police take cameras, check their septic tank, and remove bags during a late-night search. Innocent people have nothing to fear. They cooperate fully. But so do the guilty who believe they've covered their tracks. Cooperation doesn't equal innocence. It's a tactic used by both the blameless and the prepared. Nancy's own car was taken from her garage. Its status is unknown. Then, the desert yielded something. Volunteers searching the Tucson area reportedly found clothing, size 12 women's pants, and a black jacket. The articles were discovered in the desert. Photos appeared online. Officials haven't confirmed a link between the clothes and the case. This is a new lead, not hard proof, but the detail is out there. But when someone vanishes from their home, clothes found nearby cannot be ignored. Eric Maldonado, a retired Pima County deputy, worked burglaries here for 29 years. He described how people out here make bodies disappear, in the desert, in burn pits, buried where no one will ever find them. He said the Sonoran Desert is so vast. A search is like finding a needle in a haystack. Based on abduction data, experts believe her body is within a 2 to 5 mile radius of her home. Now, let's examine the theories not from the internet, not from Reddit threads. These are the evidence-based explanations for what befell Nancy Guthrie, their strengths, and their fatal flaws. The first theory centers on the person the evidence points back to, the insider, Tomaso Chioni, the last one to see Nancy alive. He drove her home, said goodnight at the garage, and then drove 4 miles back to his house with Annie. Between 10 p.m. and 1:47 a.m., his whereabouts are completely uncorroborated. Since Annie was in the house, his alibi is her word, and hers is his. He had 20 years of inside knowledge. He knew about the cameras, not just their locations, but that they didn't record. He'd seen Nancy use the Nest system countless times. He'd know she never subscribed to the service. He was at the gate 4 hours before it was bypassed without force. The hearing aids, he knew she removed them nightly. He knew that after 10 p.m., she was deaf to the world. The medication, he knew her exact schedule. Her evening dose was due right after he left. 20 years of family dinners meant he could navigate that house in total darkness. He teaches AP biology, covering genetics, molecular biology, and forensic science. His students learn PCR amplification and gel electrophoresis, the same methods used on crime scene DNA. He works with nitrile gloves daily. He understands DNA transfer, degradation, and collection. He's aware nitrile gloves aren't foolproof. They tear under strain. Sweat pools inside them within minutes. A biology teacher would know to dispose of gloves far from the scene, not right after the act. Now, consider the suspect's gear. The internet has debated for 6 weeks if the cheap backpack and ill-fitting holster suggest an amateur. I'm not revisiting that. Instead, think about what the gear reveals about its purchaser. That Ozark Trail backpack is a Walmart exclusive, tied to a specific SKU number. That SKU number links to purchase records. A card swipe or a phone ping inside a Tucson Walmart in January leaves a digital trail. The gear isn't a costume, it's a paper trail. And the FBI has had 6 weeks to trace it. The timing is critical. Nancy was abducted the same weekend Savannah was scheduled for international travel to cover the Winter Olympics for NBC. To target Nancy when her most influential family member was halfway across the world, distracted and unreachable, you'd choose that exact weekend. A random attacker wouldn't know Savannah's Olympic assignment, but someone at the family dinner table would. In May 2025, 8 months prior, Tommaso granted Annie durable power of attorney over all his financial affairs. Ashley Banfield of News Nation cited a law enforcement source who identified Tommaso as a potential prime suspect. The sheriff publicly refuted this claim. But the FBI repeatedly returned to Tommaso and Annie's residence. They carried out items in brown paper bags. They searched the septic system. They dismantled the car. For weeks, Tommaso was a ghost, while every other family member pleaded for Nancy's return. On March 2nd, he visited the memorial, and the internet immediately compared his gait to the man on the porch. Standing next to Savannah, who is 5'10", he never appeared taller, only beside her. His official height remains unconfirmed. The one detail meant to exonerate him now casts more doubt. The second theory builds upon the first. The bandmate, Dominic Evans, 5'9", with a mustache and goatee that matched the FBI's description. He has a mark on his right wrist, consistent with what was seen in the porch video. He has felony convictions in Pima County: burglary, robbery, theft, embezzlement. He spent 19 years in a band with Tommaso, a bond forged over countless hours together. If Tommaso was the architect, the one who drew the blueprint for this crime, then Evans fits the profile of the operative, the man on the porch. He had the criminal background to break into a home and handle an elderly victim. The FBI's physical profile fits him. His rap sheet shows he's capable. His 19-year bond with Tommaso establishes the trust. The architect-operative theory is simple. One man supplies the intelligence, the layout, cameras, schedule, and weaknesses. He's the architect, a ghost who's never at the scene. His weapon is information, and he wields it from home. His alibi is ironclad. He was never anywhere suspicious to begin with. The second man is the muscle, the one willing to step through a doorway at 1:47 a.m., executing a plan set in motion weeks before. He enters armed with a blueprint he couldn't have drawn himself. He knows which cameras are recording, and which are blind, which gate is unlocked, what lies in every room, the specific medicine on the counter. 2 men split the mission, one to handle Nancy, one to control the environment. One guides her down the hall. The other watches the street. One carries her to the car, the other drives. What's a deadly 41-minute risk for one man becomes a methodical operation for 2. Evans told reporters he met Nancy only once, in 2011. He claims detectives questioned him for 40 minutes and then vanished. But the sheriff never officially cleared Evans. He cleared the family. Evans wasn't family. He was a bandmate the sheriff never even named. O'Connell noticed the figure on the porch was completely at ease. No tells, no signs of stress. She theorized he was medicated, but if he was just a hired hand following orders, that chilling calm makes a different kind of sense. The anxiety of the plan wasn't his to carry. That belonged to someone 4 miles away. The third theory zeroes in on the person connecting the mastermind to the target. Nancy Guthrie, Nancy's eldest daughter, was at the dinner on January 31st, but accounts conflict on who drove Nancy home. Some say it was Tommaso, others say Annie. The sheriff named Tommaso, but the stories don't line up. Annie lives with Tommaso. She is his alibi. For 40 days, her car was stripped down and rebuilt by forensics. Their home was searched, not once, but multiple times. One late-night raid had officers seizing suitcases and cameras, documenting everything for hours. Even the septic tank was searched. Annie is the link. Every piece of inside information Tommaso had about Nancy's life. The cameras, the medication, the hearing aids, the gait, the routine, and the fact no one would check on her until noon the next day, it all traced back to Annie. Annie knew the house. Annie knew the schedule. And Annie knew that on January 31st, her mother would enter a silent home, take out her hearing aids, and be helpless for 14 hours. She signed the power of attorney with Tommaso in May of 2025. In a 2024 memoir, Savannah wrote about a childhood game she and Annie played, mock kidnapping. Waking up in the dead of night, a drive from Tucson to Phoenix, then a call to Nancy from a payphone. It was a disturbing blueprint from the family's own history, published for the world to see in a best-selling book. Kafender noted that every search on their property was consensual. No warrants, which means no probable cause. She argues this shows investigators don't have enough to truly suspect them. But then she raised a darker possibility that Nancy was tracked, that a device had been planted on her vehicle, that someone was lying in wait, knowing the exact moment of her arrival and the precise second she would be at her most vulnerable. The fourth theory looks outward, not to family, but not to a random stranger. 2 retired FBI agents said on a podcast that elder abuse was a prime angle. Clemente argued that every single person with a remote connection to Nancy should be under a microscope. Pool cleaners, landscapers, repairmen, delivery drivers, Uber drivers, anyone who had ever been inside that house and seen an elderly woman, alone and exposed. Forensic analyst Joseph Scott Morgan took it a step further, saying elder abuse cases he'd worked all followed a chilling script. It's always predators who target the elderly because they smell money. He said Nancy became a far richer target if the attacker knew whose mother she was. And in Tucson, that's not a difficult secret to uncover. Nancy used Uber at night. Every trip, a new stranger learned her address, her age, her routine, and watched her walk into a dark house, alone. O'Connell mentioned that elderly people can sometimes be far too trusting. Her own neighbor, Nancy's age, would let a total stranger into her home. But this theory has its limits. 41 minutes inside the house isn't a stranger. It's someone with a deep, personal familiarity. That rhythmic tap on the camera, that casual, confident gesture, is not a pool cleaner who's been there twice. It's the move of someone who has stood on that porch hundreds of times. And the $6 million ransom? That requires financial intel a landscaper would never have. The fifth theory is the simplest, and it comes from the one man who knows these streets better than anyone. To a man with 29 years at the Puma County Sheriff's Office, Eric Maldonado saw a simple story. He pictured a burglary gone sideways. Someone targeted her house, knowing an elderly woman would be asleep. They moved in the dead of night, when the neighborhood was dark. But Nancy woke up, and things turned violent. A struggle, blood on the porch, and the objective changed. But it was Maldonado's theory about the body that I can't shake. He said Nancy times the crime scene. Her body is the evidence holding the killer's DNA under her nails, on her clothes. Every criminal in America knows that your DNA is what ties you to the act. You cannot leave it behind, so you take her into the desert and make sure she is never found. The medication wasn't a calculated move. It was forgotten the moment violence erupted, and the original plan died. There was no longer a plan to keep her alive, only a plan to not get caught. But this entire theory is full of holes. The 3-week surveillance operation, January 11th, January 23rd, doesn't fit. That pre-execution visit to the porch is not how a burglar thinks or acts. A deauthentication device that can blind specific cameras on specific homes is a tool Maldonado never saw in 29 years of investigations. The 41-minute timeline doesn't match a burglary, and the ransom demands, even if faked, arrive too quickly with too much detail. 5 distinct theories have emerged. Each is based on evidence, and each has its flaws. But the first 3 share a common thread that the others lack. The insider theories blaming Tommaso, Evans, or Annie explain the 4-hour gap and why the medication was left behind. They explain why the cameras went dark. They explain why the gate wasn't broken. They explain the 14-hour delay in checking on Nancy, and how the suspect moved through the house in total darkness. They explain the killer's confident movements on the porch and the advanced jammer, because a longtime neighbor knows every camera angle. And they might just explain why, 40 days into the investigation, a blue Honda CRV is in pieces at a mechanic shop, just as the sheriff declares the family is cleared of any suspicion. The outsider theory's elder abuse, a simple burglary. They explain some things, but they can't explain everything. A pool cleaner doesn't tap a camera with that kind of familiarity. A burglar doesn't rehearse an intrusion for 3 weeks. A stranger couldn't possibly know the Nest camera subscription had expired. And no one outside the family would understand that missing her 10 p.m. medication would trigger an irreversible countdown. And then you have the investigation itself. If the evidence has gone cold, the way it was handled is a primary reason why. The crime scene was released in under 20 hours. After that, a new pool company, Ambiance Pool Service, which had never been to the house, was escorted into the backyard by a deputy. A landscaper came onto the property with tools. Pizza was delivered. A health aide made a visit. Reporters walked right up to the house and took pictures of blood still visible on the porch. Forensic investigator Joe Scott Morgan documented the scene's contamination, noting a complete lack of control. He said the DNA they're relying on could belong to the pool guy. The FBI had to return to the property, having missed a roof-mounted camera on their first sweep. They flew in Google engineers to attempt a data recovery. Key biological samples were sent to a private lab in Florida, not the FBI's own high-priority facility in Quantico, which specializes in fast-tracking kidnapping cases. The sheriff told NBC that processing could take weeks, months, or as long as a year. The DNA on a glove that promised a breakthrough was traced to a restaurant worker with zero connection to Nancy. One DNA profile down, one to go. But the sheriff told Fox News no glove was ever found, while the FBI told News Nation it was. He told the press that everyone was a suspect, then announced the family was cleared, calling further speculation cruel. He gave conflicting versions of the facts in separate interviews with different news outlets. The plan to use Bluetooth sniffers to find Nancy's pacemaker was leaked to the media before the search was finished. Her abductor learned from the news that investigators had a way to track her. The signal has been silent ever since. The Madres Buscadoras, a volunteer group with a record of over 5,000 desert recoveries, came to Arizona to help. They were denied. Behind it all, there's an old grudge. Back in 2015, the FBI investigated the sheriff's department over the misuse of seized funds. Chief Deputy Radke was indicted, then took his own life. Nanos appeared on television and called the FBI's entire investigation garbage. According to his former chief deputy, Nanos despises the FBI. Before Nancy vanished, 98% of his deputies already voted no confidence in him. Progress is happening in spite of command, not because of it. The agents and detectives on the ground are not the problem here. They're solving a case their own leadership has actively complicated. The focus is sharpening. A special task force, 4 detectives and a sergeant, is now working full-time from the FBI's Tucson office. The 400-person surge has ended. What's left is a quiet, targeted hunt. Clementi stated on a podcast the suspect has likely already been interviewed. They just didn't have enough to make a move. He said good police work is re-examining every detail until it all connects. The FBI admits tips are slowing, but the flow of actual evidence hasn't stopped. DNA recovered from inside the home is still under analysis. Genetic genealogy, the same tech that caught the Golden State Killer and led to Brian Kohberger in weeks, doesn't need the suspect in any database. It only takes one distant relative, one partial match, to build a family tree that leads to a name. 2 DNA profiles give them 2 separate chances. While the glove was a dead end, belonging to a restaurant worker, the mixed DNA sample from inside the house is still very much in play. And with every sample uploaded worldwide, the odds the killer has 0 relatives in a public database shrink to nothing. The home's router logs may contain what are called probe requests. These are digital fingerprints from a phone that was in range on the night of February 1st. Smartphones are constantly broadcasting them. If the suspect's Wi-Fi was on, her router might have captured the name of a network their phone was searching for. That network name could pinpoint where they live. The FBI has that data. Unlike DNA, analysis takes hours. That signal's footprint is being mapped right now. They know which cameras went dark, which stayed on, at what time, and in what direction. The map will pinpoint where the jamming device was activated. That position isolates the suspect's location to a single spot on a specific street at a precise moment in time. Cell tower data has been collected from several different dates: February 1st, January 23rd, and possibly January 11th. The FBI is hunting for a phone present in the area on more than one of those nights. If that phone belongs to anyone connected to the theories you're about to hear, this case is solved. Experts assess Nancy probably died within 72 hours of her abduction, denied her medication, her pacemaker, and her hearing aids. She was 84 years old, taken from her bed in the night by someone who deliberately left her pills behind. This is a recovery mission now. The family accepts that. Savannah confirmed they know Nancy may be gone, but they have to find her. $1 million in cash is waiting for an anonymous tip. That money exists for one reason: to shatter the pact of silence between the people who did this. In an operation with two culprits, the first person to cooperate is the one who gets a deal. The second person faces the full force of the law, so both have to hold. Both have to trust the other won't break. And $1 million in cash makes that trust the most fragile thing in all of Arizona. The architect knows the operative can destroy him with a single phone call. The operative knows the architect will deny it all and let him take the fall. Neither of them can trust the other completely, because whatever bond they shared, 19 years of shared stages and shared music, was built for rehearsals, not for murder. And the weight of what happened at 1:47 a.m. on February 1st is heavier than any burden they have ever known. Someone in Tucson knows which of these theories is the correct one. A neighbor who saw something unusual, a friend who overheard something strange, a person in Tomaso's inner circle who noticed an odd detail, a late-night phone call, an unusual purchase, a change in personality before February 1st. That person might be watching this very video. The 4 hours between 9:50 p.m. and 1:47 a.m. are where the truth is hiding. The untaken medicine, the removed hearing aids, the one camera that suddenly went blind, the garage door that closed with only a single witness inside, and 14 hours of total silence before anyone even realized she was gone. One of these 5 theories explains everything. The other 4 fall apart. And all the evidence sitting in forensic labs, stored on hard drives, captured by cameras, is sealed inside a blue Honda CRV that, 40 days later, is still being meticulously pieced back together. That proof isn't going anywhere. For whoever is behind this, the clock is ticking on a simple choice: tell your story, or let the evidence tell the truth for you. Subscribe and activate alerts. Drop your theories below, because this case is about to blow wide open, and when it does, you'll want to remember everything in this video. The tragic disappearance of Nancy Guthrie serves as a harrowing reminder that the sanctuary of home is often more fragile than we dare to admit. Beyond the forensic timelines and encrypted ransom trails lies a profound lesson about the vulnerability of our elders and the silent gaps we leave in our care. Nancy, a fiercely independent woman who raised 3 children alone, lived her final moments in a world of total silence after removing her hearing aids. Her story compels us to look past the bluff of security, realizing that a camera without a subscription or a gate left unlocked is merely an illusion of safety. The most haunting detail isn't the intruder on the porch, but the untouched heart medication left on the counter. It represents a broken routine and a missed opportunity for protection. We must learn that checking in isn't just a courtesy, it is a lifeline. This case challenges us to bridge the 1-4-hour silences in our own families. True security isn't found in Wi-Fi signals or deadbolts, but in the unwavering vigilance we owe to those who once watched over us.